Started some financial ratios today. If you have any questions, put them in the chat and I have it open, so I'll see them. All right, so first thing, like I just said, just reminders, just comment in the chat when needed. And then again, like I just mentioned, we're going to go over some terms and then practice Yahoo Finance with the ratio so you guys can get to do that maybe before you've done it in your homework and get some practice. All right, so first, we're going to go through some different types of analysis. So you'll see these terms, again, if you haven't yet in your homework, you'll see them for sure next week in class. As segment 2 is coming to a close, this is the last new thing you guys will learn are the ratios, so you guys will see these next week. So the 4 that we have are benchmarking, comparables, trend analysis, and seasonality. You might have heard these in like economics class, these kind of terms. So we'll go through them. So for benchmarking, this basically is just guidelines or general rules of thumb related to specific industry or business segments. So ratios and benchmarks help producers set goals, make decisions, and compare business performance to similar operations. So managers can use this information to assist in decision making and goal setting and compare their business performance to that of similar operations. Lenders and other creditors can use this information to evaluate credit risk. So this is your first type of analysis that you have is benchmarking. All right. And again, if you guys need me to repeat anything or questions, just put it right in the chat. The type we have is comparables. So this is used to evaluate the value of a company using metrics of other businesses of similar size and same industry. The most common comparable evaluations, these measures used in comparable analyses are the PE ratio. We've talked about that before, and the price to book price, and price to sales. So those are 3 common comparables you see. So benchmarking is more of your company to the overall industry. Comparables is your company to a similar company. So for example, if you're going to compare Nike and Adidas, that would be more of comparables, comparing 2 companies of similar size in the same industry. Then we go into trend analysis. So this requires one to calculate ratios over many business years. So by comparing previous year's ratios to the current year ratios, the business owner can determine which areas of their business has improved or faltered. On the other hand, an aspiring entrepreneur planning on establishing businesses would use their annual forecasted balance sheet and income statement to calculate sets of ratios. One set of ratios for each forecasted business year. This will show investors and the aspiring entrepreneur whether the planned business venture intends to improve in performance or decline in performance during the noted time period. So for trend analysis, again, that's taking one company, let's say Nike again, and you do it over several years. You do the same ratios over a course of, let's say, 7 years. And then you can compare them and kind of see what trend they're going in. Is it up? Is it down? Is it up and down? Are they not consistent? That's kind of what investing for with seasonality. So seasonal factors are predictable events that are common to your type of business or industry that can affect the interpretation of financial data and distort analysis of financial ratios. So in the chat, can you guys type out some examples of seasonality school sales? It's definitely it. So, and yeah, so discounts. So, around the holiday time, if you're a holiday store, you're going to go up big time around the holidays and drop in the summer. On the other hand, if you're a school store kind of thing, you're going to go right up. You're going to have a lot of sales right around July and August when everyone's going back to school, and then it's going to drop mid-school year because they don't need many things. So that's seasonality. So I have an example of weather. So a lumber company that supplies the construction industry might expect a decrease in revenue during normal seasonal weather conditions in one part of the country. So that's one example. And again, a second example, like you mentioned, holidays. Many retailers experience seasonal retail sales, seeing a big jump in consumer spending around the holiday season. So just like you mentioned, that seasonality. Just going over the DuPont real quick. Um, you guys talked about this in class, I'm pretty sure, or it might have been in your homework. I'm not quite sure, but this will come up often, and it's a good ratio to know. It probably will be seen on the test, so it's another one to really study along with all the other ratios you have. So dew point analysis is used to break down the different drivers of return on equity. So your overall equation for dew point is it also equals your return on equity. And then this equals your profit margin times asset turnover times equity multiplier. So that broken down a little bit more is return on equity equals your net income divided by sales, which is your profit margin, your sales divided by assets, which is your asset turnover, and then assets divided by equity, which is your equity multiplier. So this bottom equation is what you will be studying for DuPont. For me, once I started really studying ratios and like really knowing as soon as I see profit margin, I can say what it was. So once you kind of learn them, so just a quick review for ratios. First one is days sales outstanding, is also known as the average collection period. So this is another area that you really need to study the vocab. Professor Roden is really good at switching in and out vocab words on the exam, so you just really know your stuff and keep studying it. So for days sales outstanding or average collection period, the lower the number, the better. And this means you get money faster from accounts receivables. And then a sign that a company perceives growth opportunities slowing down is that there's high dividend payout ratios. And if the company has lower inventory turnover than yours, the company has enough inventory on hand to last longer than yours. We're going to be looking at Yahoo Finance. So if on your computer you want to pull up Yahoo Finance, we're going to be looking at Nike for the year ended in 5/31/20. So make sure you guys are looking at the right year. And all right. All right, so we're going to be looking at this page right here. So pull up Yahoo Finance, and in a second, I'll get you guys started. So real quick, on the left-hand side, you see the name of the different ratios you're going to be looking at. And in column B, you see I already have written out the ratios. You guys are still learning them. It's brand new. Next week in sessions, I'll have you guys solve them without seeing the ratios. It kind of gets you guys a little better practice before you see the exam. So I'm not expecting that on the first week of ratios. It's a big chapter. So you'll see for days sales outstanding, you have accounts receivables divided by annual sales divided by 365. So your job is to find accounts receivables on Nike's financial sheets and write out which number it is. You write out the whole equation and what it equals, and you're going to solve all of them. So I'm going to give you guys like 15, 20 minutes, and I will check in with you guys if you are not finished. If you guys have any questions while you're going along, just put them in the chat. So go on ahead, divide that by your fixed assets, which is 7,963,000, and that gives you 4.7 for your fixed asset turnover. All right, and then your leverage ratio. For leverage ratio, that is taking your total liabilities, which is 23,287,000. You divide that by your total assets, which is the 37, no, that's not right, which is the total assets, sorry, is 31,000,000 342,000. And then you end up with 0.74. This is actually 74%. All right. So that is your leverage ratio. And then for gross margin, that is taking your total sales. So that is your 37 million. And you divide that by your cost of goods sold, which is 21,643,000. And you divide that by total sales again. And you end up with 0.4 or 40%. All right, so that is your gross margin. Now for net margin, that's taking your net income, and your net income is 2,539,000. And you divide that by your total sales, which is the 37,403,000. And you end up with a net margin of 0.07 or 7%. All right. Moving on to return of assets. So for return of assets, this is taking your net income, which is your 2,539,000, and you divide that by total assets, which is 31,342,000, and you end up with a return of assets of 0.08. And then that gives you also 8% of return on assets. Now moving down to the DuPont formula, I added this in for a little extra practice on these three ratios down here. So if we first look at net margin, we already solved that above. So if you copy and paste it down here, oops, then you end up with the 0.07, so same answer as above. And then if you look at your asset turnover, that is the same as that's their fixed asset turnover, so it's going to be the same thing. And then you divide that and you end up with your 4.7. And then last but not least, your equity multiplier. So that's taking your total assets, which is your 31,342,000, and you divide that by your equity, which is 8,055,000, and you end up with 3.9. So I don't know if you noticed, but the way I do it, so I type in a number, you type in your second number, and when you solve it, you type in the equation and it solves it for you. Now the reason being, and you can even do it above, and this is a good habit to get into once we get further in the course, especially segment 3. We use a ton of Excel. Get in the habit of not just solving it on your calculator, of using Excel like I have up here in the type bar, of actually doing the equation in here. Because for example, let's say you have another company, no longer Nike, and you need to find their net margin again. All you do is change this number. Let's say it's 3,500,000 now, and it automatically changes right here. So it's no longer you doing this long math over and over for different steps. I promise you segment 3 will save a lot of time. So get in the habit of doing that. And then also, now I'm solving for my DuPont, so it's a full equation. So first I have my net margin. If I just reference this cell, it will put it right there. And then I do my asset turnover, and I do my equity multiplier. Then to solve it, I press an equal sign, click the first cell, which is net margin, multiplied by your asset turnover, and then multiply that by your equity multiplier. And so you end up with a DuPont of 1.2. So again, I did it the same way of referencing cells because again, if you want to do the problem for a different company, it's very easy. You just have to change these numbers and it automatically will change the answers. So it saves a ton of time. So hopefully going through these equations were not too difficult. Can you give me all good or thumbs up or anything? Or if you have any questions on any of the ratios, type it in the chat real quick so I can see where you're at. All good. All good. All right. Wonderful. So that is the end of today. So thank you guys for coming. All right, let me